Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode, this time really another edition, of The Other Side of Midnight, as this program now is going out around the world, literally in 160 plus countries, in Europe tonight in 49 minutes 210 seconds. The Rosetta spacecraft will descend gently at about walking speed to the surface of comet Churyumov-Gerasimaso 67P. And we're going to kind of cover this live. I've got my Sterling imaging panel assembled with some new members and some old members and some blue members and some borrowed members. Well, that's some from another ritual. Okay, and we're going to talk about rituals. Because tonight, you know, S is doing something pretty weird, pretty interesting. So we're going to tell you in the next 2 hours everything they're not going to tell you, but that they're showing you. They're just not making it official yet. But before we get into that, which is in another few minutes, I want you to scroll down, theothersideofmidnight.com. Remember, that's our homepage, theothersideofmidnight.com. I want to crow a bit. If you look at item number 2 under my items tonight in radio with pictures, NASA this week announced they have found plumes of water jutting up through the icy crusts of Europa, and they suggested, A, this confirms the ancient ocean hypothesis under the ices of Europa that's been out there now for well on 20-some years. And 2, if you look at image item number 3, link number 3, that's a link to the Enterprise mission, our Enterprise mission website. I published the model that NASA has now confirmed about the oceans under the ices of Europa and the possibility of life, and I don't mean little tiny guys, I'm talking about big guys like European whales or something maybe even more interesting. And I talked about it like 30 years ago in 1980. I remember it was AP called me at the crack of dawn in 1980 in December to talk about this article I'd put in Star and Sky magazine. Well, the link to the actual paper is there in link number 3. And science is nothing if it's not prediction. And the reason this is important is because the backdrop to tonight's conversation, and we'll scroll all the way down under my items, all the way down to image number 8. That's a book cover from the book I published this last spring, courtesy of North Atlantic Books. That's the random imprint there, Penguin. It was an anthology, and I was asked to contribute like 15, 18%, something like that. And I decided to use the pages to lay out before we got to Pluto, before they got the really amazing images that we've got now of 67P, before they gave us all the stuff they're giving us from Curiosity on Mars, that I would kind of do a data dump of the state of the art of the hypothesis that we are not the first. And I published it this year, as the prerequisites require, in the mainstream, in a mainstream publication, a book by a major publisher, with evidence and close-ups and a story arc laying out the idea that we live in a previously inhabited solar system, and that NASA and ESA and the other agencies over the last several decades have been giving us drip, 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 very carefully controlled and censored versions of the reality that's out there tonight, that Rosetta is literally looking down on, and it falls at several inches per second in a 8-9 mile plunge to the surface of 67P in a little over 3 hours. When we come back, our story. You're on the other side of midnight. My name is Richard C. Hoagland, and we shall return. And we are back on the other side of midnight to the Moody Blues. I know you're out there somewhere. And ads in the chat window, hopefully. Yeah, there's somebody hopefully out there because we're looking at an amazing place. All right, let me get to our panelists here because I'm going to do a very abbreviated intro. Kynthea has been known in early Mars circles as Mama Mars, and we discussed that on her last appearance. She's in the San Francisco Bay Area, a well-known artist, artistic director for the Mars Project, which segued into the Enterprise mission. And she, of course, is coming up to speed, like all the rest of us, on all the other stuff that's been left by these guys all over the solar system that wasn't there when we were just looking at Mars. Keith Laney is a space imaging processing and anomaly specialist from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a husband, father, grandfather, artist, copper master, amateur space scientist, and avid promoter and supporter of space exploration. And his stuff, his imaging stuff, is stunning. Andrew Currie is, he began his artistic career as a community public artist, working with neighborhood groups to create murals in schools and community centers. As a graphic designer and illustrator, he serviced small to large Canadian companies, and for the past decade he's worked as a storyboard artist and concept illustrator in film and television and in commercial TV advertising. Andrew has a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of British Columbia, a diploma in graphic design and illustration, and a master's in art therapy, which came in extraordinarily handy when we were doing analyses of Alan Bean's artwork of ancient structures on the moon that comes out in the art, but not in the verbiage. So Andrew is also with us. Moving on, Will Farrar. Will Farrar is kind of going to be our checkoff for the night. He's going to monitor communications. Will grew up in Maryland, where he started his career in technology at a very young age of 16 and is currently the information tech director of a national healthcare company which never wants us to know who they are because they don't want to be associated with the show. But regardless of that, he's one hell of a guy, and he's going to be monitoring ESA communications. So as soon as the Spacecraft Control Center there in Germany tells us that they are in the process of the final countdown to the crash landing, he will let us know. And last but not least, actually there's several more here. I have a very long list this morning. Bob Harrison has been with us from the beginning. He's a keen investor. I mean, that's how he retired to do all this interesting stuff. Achieving his dream of financial independence, he decided to retire from the rat race back in 2010. And as a child of the space age, he was fascinated by exploration in space and speculations about ET life. And these have now matriculated in several websites, including Sidonia Quest, and he's been doing exquisite work on a concept called the arcology hypothesis on Mars. Thomas Mikey Jensen was born in Denmark in 1977. He's a new kid on the block. Has his first alien sighting when he was 5 years old. I guess maybe some night we should talk about that. And his first UFO close encounter when he was 8. Well, that'll get you going. He is with us tonight bringing his UFO and imaging expertise. And he has a popular book out a Facebook group called the Mars Moon Space Photo Zoom Club, which has been active since 2012. And now, finally, last but not least, Chris Moroney, born and raised in Rhode Island, worked at Texas Instruments before becoming a tool setter for the past 15 years. His true passion has always been anything in space. And as everyone said on the last panel, they basically got into this because they always kind of suspected that the stuff upstairs may be more interesting than we were being told. So Chris joins us, and that includes everybody. And I guess I should ask the obvious question, where do we want to go first? And don't be shy. Hello.
As everybody gets shy.
My God, you're obviously all got stage fright.
Well, I'd like to jump in. This is Kynthea, and the reason I'm jumping in first is because I have one image there that is not specifically related to Rosetta, but it implies Rosetta, and that is, it's the last image in my images, and it's some quick little
Okay, so we have to go to
to
the other side of midnight.com, click on Radio with Pictures, and we scan down to which one?
the last one.
Under your section, Kynthea's images.
Yeah.
4,
right.
Sidonia Pleiades. Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, so you remember how Robert Bauval came up with this insight about how the plateau of Giza was laid out in the shape of the Orion constellation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found this thing on YouTube where this guy has actually taken the transparency of the Cydonia site, and he mapped it out, and then he's laid it over the Pleiades, and voila, it's matching up.
Oh,
so,
I know this guy. He's from South Africa.
Yeah, his name is not on the YouTube.
We've been in touch. We've been in touch. I'm going to have him on the show because he and George and I did a show together some years ago. Right. He has some interesting ideas. He also has some pretty far-out ideas, but you're right. We should definitely include him in the conversation. I'm so glad you found this.
Right. Well, I am too. So the reason I found it was because my own take is that I really feel that the Pleiades have had a big hand in the orchestration of our solar system. And so I was doing, searching for Pleiades and Mars, and that's how it came up. And so my sense is that actually this crystal ship is from the Pleiades, is what I'm thinking. And I've also heard channelings. This is the other overlap, is that I've heard, how in the field, we have a consciousness that in the field we are all connected, and so archetypal memories and ancient memories reside there, and we tap into them with a degree that we're able, like a radio taps into a radio wave. Some radios are more sophisticated and they get more information, and
there's even a kind of common joke about it. You pick up something in the ether.
Right. Okay. So my knowing is that in the ethers reside all our ancient memories. And anyway, I think that the Pleiades are big players here. And the question is, are we from Mars, or did the Pleiades go to Mars and come here? Was Mars one of the first Garden of Edens laid out by the Pleiades?
Wouldn't it be bizarre if men are from Mars and women are from the Pleiades? That would explain a lot.
Oh, that's where I was going, is that this channel was saying that the astronauts were women from the Pleiades.
Interesting.
And I thought that very, very different.
Okay,
so then Andrew brings up.
Let's move this conversation to 67P, because the kind of fulcrum of tonight, which is the backstop of everything on Mars and beyond, is that there was this apparently incredible ancient presence. And the presence is revealed in analyzing the close-up images now that the European Space Agency has given us through this extraordinary mission, which they're bringing to a very ceremonial close tonight. Does anybody want to address the ceremony? Andrew?
Oh, hi, Richard. Sorry. It's that whole mute thing. We got to get a fast trigger finger. Well, first, Richard, can I know I can make this really brief. We last week failed to do something. It was really nice that actually Kynthea came on. The imaging panel came on as a bunch of guys walking through a door and letting the door kind of slam in Kynthea's face. We need to welcome her and thank her very much for her contributions.
I can't believe that, Andrew. Thank you.
Anyways, Rich, I had to get that out. So.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Okay, so now, can someone please follow a direction tonight? Every time I introduce something, someone goes like a heifer. My grandmother used to say, running a race with a heifer is pointless. So, Andrew, ritual, ceremony, what is an ESSA really doing on live global television right now?
Well, look, I refuse to call this thing a comet. I only will call it 67P because it is not a comet. And we have covered this thing over and over again, seen it from close up and from far out. We've seen, and we're going to be going over these images, and they're extraordinary. Richard, this spaceship, this ancient derelict spaceship, is dotted with ancient spacecraft that have come to this place, as we've talked about frequently in our sort of celestial stations of the cross, for no better term, or for a better term. And they land here, and it's really interesting because when we do cover the two short films, hopefully we have some time to do that, there are so many threads at the end of that point to this being literally a sacrifice on the surface of 67P, being Rosetta. And following in a tradition of many spacecraft from many civilizations in our past visiting what we think is the archive and a celestial city.
Well, it seems like ESA is following then a very ancient tradition, because I've seen some of these things. In fact, Keith found an image this afternoon. Let's go back to Radio with Pictures. Let's back out of Kynthea's section. Let's scroll back to my section, which is at the top of the Radio with Pictures page. I went too far. Darn. Computers, they do what you tell them, and only what you tell them. So, if we go back and we scroll back up, if you look at, let's see, where am I image here?
Your item number 12.
Image number, 11. 11 and 12. So go to, I'm sorry, 11 and 10. That's what I want. 11 and 10. They're out of sequence, okay? This is where they're landing. I'm sorry. Let me get to that next. Let me go to 12, because you're right. That's the recent craft. And when we say recent, and by the way, these are clickable. If you click on them, they get bigger. Keith, since you found this, you want to describe what you think we're seeing here?
Well, the common consensus is they're rocks, but I'm seeing a triangular craft sitting. It's like to the far right. Mm-hmm. And it's laying in it looks like it's crashed there. It's triangular, and it's got some details about it. And also right to its left, there's another one sitting there. There's like old stuff that's sitting there. Looks like it's falling apart. So it's like we have ages of different types of craft, if that's what they are, sitting here. Mm-hmm. It's just a stunning image, and it's surprising that this would come out right now, because you'd kind of asked for if we could find pictures of anything that looked like this, and we started looking, and wow, there shows one up.
Yep. So it's kind of amazing. If we go back to Radio Pictures and click on 11 of my images, this is the official Rosetta map to where they're landing tonight. If you click on it, it gets much bigger. But they're landing in an area called Mot, which is Egyptian for equilibrium, truth. It was an ancient Egyptian concept, balance, harmony, Mot. So they're landing in this place they've called Mot, and in this place there are several of these very large circular pits in the ground that are hundreds of feet across and hundreds of feet deep. And if you look on the wide-angle imagery that Rosetta took from far away, it's from these areas that some of the biggest gushing jets into space, carrying gases and, ice crystals and all that, were jetting from the interior of this object. Now, the standard model says that these jets are basically due to the sun warming ices on the surface of the comet as it rotates like a chicken on a barbecue spit, and you basically have thermal heating and you have this flash vapor. Except when you look at the close-up, so now we go to image number 10. This is one of the close-ups that the OSIRIS camera on the spacecraft took a few months ago, and we've done a little tweaking just to enhance the contrast. This is what one of those huge 300-foot wide tunnels, vertical tunnels, look like. The walls are studded with thousands of little, like 3 feet, 1 meter size thingies, all arranged in a stunning geometric pattern. And they decided to lower the spacecraft, to have it fall straight down over this region and take close-ups of what that geometry is in the last few seconds before the impact, and trans that information back to Earth live. And we'll probably see images with resolutions on the order of hundredths of an inch, because the cameras are going to be so close, within 1,000 feet of this structure at that time, in about an hour.
Well, hey, Richard.
Yes, Keith.
Else we're trying to land this thing in Dar el Medina. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's the actual name of the pit that they're trying to name in. You know what Dar el Medina is, right?
Well, it's a very famous sacred site in ancient Egypt.
It means servants in the place of truth.
Servants in the place of truth.
Yeah, that's yeah. It was a place where the guys that built the Valley of the Kings lived. The workers. It was their village, and they were like a really secret society.
So S is basically claiming kinship with these ancient workers in search of truth.
Well, yeah, they're servants of the truth, but what they did was they dug the tombs in the Valley of the Kings. So they were responsible for the preservation of the history of the pharaohs and
they were the archivists. They were the priesthood archivists.
They were the archivists, right?
Yeah. So of course the archivists have sent a mission to an archive because 67P is an ancient ship. It's an archive. Did anybody disagree with me on that?
Oh no, as is portrayed in their newest video epilogue.
Okay. Do we have a link to that video? Is it under Andrew's items, or I don't see it? Oh, wait a minute. Yes, it is. It's under Andrew's items, which is just above Will's items. So maybe we want to, because we really can't play it live on the air because it's what, 30 minutes, something like that?
No, it's actually just a few minutes.
Okay, but again, people wouldn't be able to see it all out of sync and all that, so we have to describe. What you do is you want to go to the link. It says Ambition Epilogue, pays tribute to Rosetta's final comet days. This is an official film produced by ESA, by the European Space Agency, and it is so incredibly symbolic and iconic and metaphorical. I mean, it's talking at 3 levels above the average public taxpayer in the European Union. So who's the audience and what's the message? So who wants to tackle the message part?
Well, Andrew's number 6 and 7, he's done still shots of it with comments. I think
so,
Andrew's
why do we start with Andrew on this, who seems to be a bit shy tonight?
Yeah, that would be strange. Yeah, okay, so if we go to Radio with Pictures, and I hope most people are able to do that because this is a kind of an important feature tonight. And if you go to my images and scroll all the way down to something called AC Ambition Epilogue 6, and what I've done is I've made a photo board with small descriptions of essentially the film. And I can go quickly through it. And what I want everybody to do, Richard, is to jump in and we can interpret a scene as it comes along. So does everybody understand what I'm saying here?
So we'll go to the series of images, graphics you've created, starting with number 6.
Yeah, exactly. So we open on a lush forest. So this is from the epilogue film. There were 2 films. Ambition, which showed these post-human type characters, a master and an apprenticed female, where they seem to have achieved hyperdimensional powers, where she is literally creating this giant rock in the air out of the landscape. And it's a fascinating short film. And we have to sort of stop there for a second, Richard, and explain that, ESA would explain this as a commission piece to a film and special effects company, hiring actors and crew and a director to take it through to sell this to the public, to the European public, because obviously it's a lot of money to do this. But again, we think it's operating on a lot of different levels. This is the second film that came later where the apprentice, the female, is now a master. So we open on a lush forest. We see a woman walking in the distance. It's the former apprentice who is now a master, and she says, "So, another day." The next shot is, the first shot shows a fallen dead tree, but the next shot, we see the sky with a giant, massive tree that stretches high into the sky, and the voiceover goes, again, the master now, the female, says, "It's strange." And then we see a close-up of her face as she looks up at the tree. "But no matter which star you find yourself under, mornings are always cold." So right away, we're on this lush planet. We don't know where it is, but we're on this incredible planet. It's Earth-like, but it's not Earth. And she's walking in the morning dew, and she immediately says it's very cold. Now, Keith, you brought up a couple of interesting points about this. You want to cut in?
By all means, go ahead.
Well, she's seen is the dead tree, and then you're looking over it to see her. And then she's going down this long hallway in the forest that you can see. All right, then she shows. Then they show this live tree, and it's not really included in your image there, but the live tree looks surprisingly like the dead one. Okay, now this is really symbolic, okay, because what she says is so another day as soon as she looks up the new tree. Okay, as she's leaving the dead tree. To me, this is really symbolic. Okay, and then the next thing she says is no matter which star you find yourself under. And what in the world do they mean by that? Okay, but mornings are always cold. And mornings, what type of mornings? Mornings like morning or morning in other ways? But, this is that's all up for conjecture because makers of a film that do this planned it very well.
Well, it's also got the ultimate, what we would call plausible deniability, because they can always say, oh, it's just an artistic commission. They could do anything they wanted, but we know there's a meta message. In fact, there's several levels of message.
At this time, though, in the film, after she looks at the tree and says mornings are always cold, she looks back down the trail toward the dead tree, and then it shows Rosetta creeping up on the comet. Okay. And
well, you could then say she's referring to the ship that brought the visitors from another star to the solar system, from the dead tree to produce a live tree. I mean, the metaphors just come tumbling out.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
And also, as Em has suggested, mornings are beginnings.
Yes,
this is the beginning of a new age.
Well, it goes three ways.
To come out publicly and say,
if you find they use the three-way, they use the three-way concept.
I tell you what, hold it there. Gosh, time is really flitting. We're at the bottom of the hour. We're on the other side of midnight. A very interesting panel. We're discussing what does ESSA really mean by releasing a film which basically talks about reincarnation, resurrection, and new birth from the deadness of Rosetta's vision. You're on the other side of midnight, and we shall return. And we are back on the other side of midnight on this Friday morning. We're in the night of the black moon. And before you think horror stories and Blair Witch and all that, it's just a kind of an obscure technical term meaning that we had 2 new moons within 1 month, within the September. First day there was a new moon, meaning the moon was kind of between the Earth and the Sun. Not an eclipse, but so close you can't see it in the glare of sunlight, of course. And then a month later, tonight, there's dawn actually, we have the moon again in that position, roughly between the Earth and the Sun, within a degree or so. No eclipse, but again, it's called a black moon. Because anyway, these are kind of arcane things, but they're definitely celestial. And we're looking at things far beyond the moon. I mean, some night we should do a whole show just on the moon. We could take one planet each night and show you astonishing things that the agencies have now found that they simply aren't telling anybody about. They're showing them, but they're not telling them. In fact, Keith earlier sent me an email. He said, it's almost like they're waiting for us to tell people. So let's get back to telling people. Keith, I think you had the floor.
Well, we were at the last part of the of talking about the first part of the Rosetta the epilogue video.
Exactly, the film. So, Andrew, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, listen, before we go any further, Richard, I should also explain, just for those who haven't seen the original film, Ambition, that it's like an homage, it's like a future homage back to ESSA's ambition to chase down a comet, a so-called comet, and then land a probe on it, which was the Philae lander, and then go into orbit and land this lander, and then eventually land down on top onto 67P. So it's kind of like a future looking back on this whole episode. So I just wanted to add that in there. People really should
hang on. Before you get into the story, we got an update from Will. Will's been monitoring. Up on the bridge, ESSA Communications, apparently the control room crew is now entered. They're putting the lander in a proper position for its crash landing. What do you got for us?
All right. The flight control team is now in the main control room, and they are updating the time to impact till 10:38 UTC, which is exactly 3 hours from now. The live feed goes live in 22 minutes, which I will be watching and reporting back.
They had reported earlier it was going to land about 10:40 Greenwich time. Now they're saying 10:38, and they said it was a plus or minus 20 minutes. That's 2 minutes error from a day around this bizarre comet, which is not a comet, which has all kinds of internal gravity, nulls and valleys and things that can disturb the trajectory. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing prognostication within 2 minutes, and they made that prediction days ago.
It's pretty
It's been
amazing. As it unfolds, I'll be back with you.
Okay. So, back to Andrew.
Okay, so to go back, we're on Radio with Pictures under Andrew's items and under my number 6, and we're now moving towards the bottom of this, what I call a photo board. So in the story, and this is the way the filmmakers describe it, this look up to the tree sort of triggers her, well, I'm thinking it triggers a memory, and then that's when we see the Rosetta Probe sort of flying through space. So this is where we're getting the connection now to the probe. So go back to Radio with Pictures, go to number 7. So under my items, Andrew's items, you go to number 7.
Okay.
And all right. So what she does here is we see a close up on her, and she's now walking through the forest forward because she's basically decided to return to the archives. And we sort of see this. You don't see it so much in this screenshot, but you can kind of see a ghosting effect as she approaches what soon will be this internal place. And then we trip over to the Rosetta spacecraft as it is seen approaching 67P. So we have this parallel. We have her approaching the archive, and then we have Rosetta approaching 67P. So once again, yeah, right.
Can they hit us over the head with it?
Yeah, I know. And then the very next shot, we're behind her, the camera's dolling with her. She enters the archives, the library, and then we see a POV shot, so a point of view shot. And what we see is a series of doorways, actually, translucent enterings and 2 pillars.
My God.
3 doorways, 2 pillars. 3 doorways, 2 pillars. Remember, it's I've been telling you they've been using duality and triple concepts in this film the whole way. But yes.
Go ahead, or Keith. You wanted to add something to this, remember?
Actually, no. But I mean, you covered it just nicely. But I just want to notice she goes in between 2 pillars.
That's right.
There you go.
Well, hang on. Let's hit it on the head. What do you think the 2 pillars represent? What are the pillars?
Well, it's Solomon's temple.
Yes, Joachim and Boaz, the 2 major temples in Masonry, in Freemasonry. They're telling us who's flying the mission and what they're going to find.
And it's going into a passage into the unknown. And Richard, the neoclassicism here, I mean, I know you could say, no. The art directors are Europeans, so of course they're going to use European motifs, high classicism. Again, all Greek and Roman architecture. But I'm saying, no. This is going a lot deeper than just, a remembrance of the Renaissance. Keith, you had a really good comment about as she enters this, she makes her way. Oh, by the way, she goes through an atrium, which is interesting. Okay. This is actually an atrium. Yeah, there's an atrium area, and then she makes her way. She moves through this door. She makes a right turn, and there she's in what I call a grand gallery, where she sees a projection of the 67P, but in a highly crystalline form. Now, Keith, you brought up a couple of really good points that tied to, guess what, 2001. So, Keith, please.
Yeah, if you remember the scene after Dave goes into the monolith, and then he's in this neoclassical room, very similar to this, and there's columns, there's doorways. It's really similar, and the way it ties that part together. And then she walks up, and then there's this archive here. The whole point of this was she returns to the archive. She walks into this archive, and there's 67P. So what is this telling you?
It's like a hall of mirrors.
You guys, the chandeliers, the crystal chandeliers, there's 2 of them. And it's light. It's the celestial city. This is a crystalline image. Richard, did you not say 67P is pitch black?
Basically, like 2-3% reflectivity. It's carbon. It's carbon nanotubes, actually. So it's incredibly black. It's like blacker than coal. It's blacker than powdered charcoal.
Yeah. And here it's white, and it's absolutely crystalline. This is, Keith, our celestial city, is it not?
Straight out of the Vedas. Straight out of the Vedas. I mean.
So let's move on to number 8. So if you go back to Radio with Pictures, and we'll move a little quicker here. We'll get to number 8, to my items. She has a knowing look. She looks up at this archive, remembers the explanation from her master from the first film. Again, people really need after the show to go. Well, they can take a link through here, and by joining Club 19.5, they not only can see the links because they're all in a nice cozy place, but they can also earn some money as well. So please look into that. So she has a knowing look across her face, and she begins to walk towards another opening. And what we see is a fresco with two male figures, and this is a fascinating thing. This is a fascinating detail, and there's lots of details. But Richard, there is no doubt that every single detail in this film has been absolutely put in here deliberately. And Kynthea, you wanted to add something about this, about these characters, right? Oh, did she go away?
Kynthea, unmute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was on mute. I wanted to add some of M's messages, our dear producer. So she's mentioning here the master being the female here is the reflective divine feminine, persistent creative power. The past is the masculine brute force, even with a little loincloths. Well, we're coming up on that, so I'll hold back there.
Yeah.
And I'm having a strange experience in that suddenly I can't connect to the site, but that's all right. I remember the images, and I have. Yeah. Okay.
Go click on today's show. That's a backdoor entry into the site, because I think we're just being overwhelmed with visitors.
Oh,
this is good. Yes, we have traffic. We have lots of traffic. So I was
able. It did the same thing to me. I refreshed and it came back. So just try
I was able to get in.
Okay.
Yeah, get in through today's show. Yes, Keith.
Keith, can you add your layers now to what we're seeing in these what we're calling the twins?
Well, yeah, it's Castor and Pollux. It symbolizes duality. Do you see how they're turned away from, but also towards each other? And then do you see the spiral above their head of the two snakes? They're intertwined. That is the very concept of quantum physics.
And it's the double helix.
Yeah, it's the double helix also. Yes, it's life also. You see so many things portrayed there. Then she turns and looks into this gateway. And the gateway is reflective, and it shows three reflections of her, and each one of them is different. If you look at it, it's very strange.
Okay, so go ahead, Andrew.
I wanted to add one more thing before we go past the twins. The twins, Castor, what is it?
Castor and Pollux.
Castor and Pollux. They become the Gemini, and they are worshipped as the gods who helped shipwrecked sailors, and they would bring good winds to the sailors when sacrifices were made. And this is the point. The spaceships that we're seeing on 67P are sacrifices. So please go, Kynthea, please.
I'm just going to add some more of M's comments here. So she says the masculine, the two.
Now we're still on. Hang on. We're still on number 8 on Andrew's storyboard, right?
Yes, and we've moved down now to our master, our female master, who interesting enough is feminine and female, and she is now standing at some sort of opening, which has obviously got some cover on it, and we're seeing her reflection 3 times, and they're different in each image.
Well, you realize, of course, why she has to be feminine. This is the year of ISIS. This is why Hillary has to be president. This is why Trump is the worst candidate in history, because she has to be, as part of this ritual, she has to be president. It's the year of the feminine, the divine feminine, in their perception.
Yeah. Kynthea?
Okay, so are we on number 8 now?
Yep.
Panel number 8? All right, so the masculine duo are inclined toward each other under snakes. The snakes symbolize 1, Kundalini, the divine feminine creative power, or Shakti energy, or 2, the unfinished caduceus. The masculine without the feminine, thinking it unnecessary, clearly are trying to complete human evolution, Kundalini, or the symbol, the caduceus, to be the cure, but are met with destruction. The master understands the symbol. It is a museum for a reason. The masculine dismisses the feminine to its detriment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when we move, and another thing I wanted to add, Richard, is we're seeing this 3, and Keith brought this up earlier. We're seeing the Godhead again. You know, I mean, an example would be Christianity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In Hinduism, there's Brahma, the creator god, Vishnu, the protector god, and Shiva, the destroyer. So we're seeing the symbology in multi-cultures right happening here.
Well, they're just letting it all hang out for whoever can decode it, whoever can see through the mirrors.
Yeah, that's right. So let's go back to the picture. So we're again on number 8. We're moving down the photo board. We now see Rosetta beginning its ascent to the surface of 67P. So in the image, we see the probe starting to go down. One of the final shots is 67P tumbling through space as it travels once more into its long elliptical orbit back out into the further reaches of the solar system. There are 2 more shots. It says in the film, it says, in September 2016, Rosetta's journey ends. The next shot is, we continue ours. Now listen, 67P rotating in that image then gives way to the final shot. And Keith, what is that final shot doing? It's a spiral dolly, just like it's tumbling and coming to right itself with the 2 pillars. In other words, because of that camera move and that spiral dolly, we're just like 67P was tumbling, we're tumbling our way back to, you know, a firm footing here.
Well, the origin is the tree symbol is origins. It's roots, literal roots. They're saying we did not come from here. An homage to our real history. Like if they were on the program tonight, they could not be plainer.
Yeah. Richard or Keith, did you want to add anything on that one, that last one?
Oh, well, it's also we continue ours, and then they show us the same archive that she walked through.
Yeah, that was
Correct.
tumbling. It was tumbling.
Yes.
Just like exactly. So how many more times did we tie it together?
Right.
So it's open to us.
Yeah.
You know what? And then does anybody remember Holger Sirks, who is the PI of Rosetta, had an image in the Image of the Day archive of him standing in his clean suit behind the glass door with his finger pushing, and the door said "access forbidden," and he was fixing to open it with this wry look on his face.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so you know, we expect nothing less from these ultra smart, beautiful people. I mean, this is wonderful what they've done here, and you know, this is designed so that those that see can see, and those that don't will never. And you know, that's the beauty of this. I mean, you know, people say we want it plainer, we want disclosure, and I'm like, well, we don't need disclosure. It's right in front of us. It's right here. They already put it. It's just like you said, Richard. They're just going to throw it all out there, and is it for real? Yes, it is.
Richard, Keith, go ahead.
No, you finish because
all right. Well, what I was going to say is that Keith, like you're touching on the thing here that they're putting it out there for let those who have eyes see. So now, more and more, we're beginning to access the field more consciously, and that's the archive, the field of consciousness. It's becoming more available to more of humanity. And it's something that's waking up from within. It's not a linear type of event. It's like going from seeing in black and white to seeing in color. And as a species, we are waking up to our ancient memories. And that's where this film is ending there, where you're seeing the archive, which is the doorway to those ancient memories.
And Richard, I want to add one more thing. If we could go back to Radio with Pictures, and you scroll down, and Emma's kindly put a link under my final number 8, and it is the making of the film Ambition. So the one before the breakdown we just did. But listen, towards the end, and everybody must again watch this as well, the making of, because Richard, at the very end of this small little film, the simulations expert, he's one of the special effects guys. His name is, and I'm gonna mangle his name, but Lukacs Sobits. He's called the simulations expert for this company called Platige Image, and that's the company that created the film. Anyways, listen to this. I'm gonna read what he says, because it's dubbed over in English on the bottom. The actual campaign idea is certainly well targeted, and we need a great director, film, and actors to convince people this is interesting. But shooting myself in the foot a bit, mankind sends a probe into space to catch a comet and land on it. I'm surprised you need something like this at all now. They don't even know why they're doing this film.
Well, is this an incredible, kabuki theater thing? I mean, it just seems to me, unless this is so unconscious and so modulated by the physics so that like minds are entrained in the same memories and symbology, there's got to be secret planning here. I mean, the whole Masonic imagery, they're saying, this is who we are, this is who owns this, you're going through our doorway to our past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Disagreement? Agreement?
Totally agree.
Okay.
Totally agree.
See, to me, this is a setup for when they have to. It's not gonna crystallize like a super cool fluid until there is some kind of official announcement. I think what they're doing is loading the archives, so when there is this spark and it goes viral and people go, holy cow, look what's out there, they can say, well, we didn't know, amazing, with all the rest of us. It's called political deniability, and they'll get away with it. Look at what Trump has gotten away with.
We've got a break in from the news desk. The live feed is now going. You can see the people funneling in and out of the pretty neat room they've got here set up. So we are now live and waiting. So anybody who has that live feed up, Richard, I know you had it tied in. You wanted to bring it up a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I want to go back to the top and I see it there. Yes. Oh, wonderful. And in fact,
if there's anything good, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I was having this weird a voice in my ear, and I was thinking, oh, I'm losing it. Then someone said, why don't you check the feed? So it's the feed. I have the feed way up, and they had some kind of a little intro. So we'll turn that down. You'll keep an eye on that. If they pop up any kind of a monitor, this impact actually is not going to be an impact. Anybody want to take up the idea of how this thing is actually going to, quote, crash or be sacrificed?
If it crashes at all?
Well, they basically is on a descent impact trajectory. It's not going to miss the comet, so it's going to land. The question is how hard, and then what happens.
Well, it's a pretty big craft, and it's got great big old long solar panels. And when it hits, something's going to break, even if it's just going, at minimum velocity. And it will be going at minimum velocity, but they don't expect it to survive, the crash. But it would be really neat if it would come to rest on the surface and still take a few pictures,
Well, remember go ahead.
Yeah. What if they actually are trying to land it, but they only told us that they would send it down and crash it?
Well, I don't think that's realistic because, again, this thing is made for space, deep space. Its solar panels were something like a football field wide. They're as wide as that pit, 300 feet. And when this thing comes down, even at walking speed, it's going to flop. It's going to bounce like Philae did. There's no gravity. So there's no controllability. So the high-gain antenna is not going to remain pointed at the Earth, and then the thermal properties are going to go to hell with it sitting in all that black dust. It's going to get covered with dust. The thermal properties are going to go through the roof. It's going to die of thermal shock or lack of energy, lack of solar power, or lack of batteries, or lack of, in other words, a whole bunch of stuff. No, this is a sacrifice because they, as part of the succeeding epic of civilizations stretching off to the horizon, we can see the craft on the surface. We're the last of a line of Mohicans stretching into the distance that have all done this. The question is, what do they get out of doing this way?
Great question, Thomas, because I had the same one in my head too.
We never know what they will do, and we don't trust them for sure for what they're telling us.
But boy, those solar panels are huge. I'm looking at some of those things, Richard. You're dead on. There's nothing. Something's going to break on it, no matter what.
Oh, there's no. Remember when they landed? I forget the name of the spacecraft on Eros. It was much more compact because it was much closer to the sun when they rendezvoused, and they actually were able to maintain communication. But it wasn't a ritual. This is a ritual. They literally are sending the, suicide command to the computer. So when it feels the shock of landing, it turns everything off because they don't want the radio signal to mess up other stuff. By the way, speaking of radio signals, I know you're reading my mind, Will.
It's that time.
It's that time. And we got 3 minutes. Well, 2 minutes. Okay.
We've been, and as the new pictures are coming back, if everybody wants to also have our Facebook page up, The Other Side of Midnight, I'm putting them under this link, under the link for today's show, along with a lot of questions are being asked out there as well. So I've been manning that and putting the new pictures out on there for people to see.
Okay, send me some of the best questions because I'll feed those to the panel, or tackle one or two myself if we get to that part. Are we going to wait till after the break then at the top of the hour? Yeah, let's wait to play this comet music because I want to go and I want to kind of dissect the so-called music of 67P that they released almost 2 years ago when they got here. And just before, in November of last year, I think, before they separated the little Philae lander, they gave us this little chunk of music, or plasma interactions, as they're technically called. And it's so bizarre when you play them because, well, let's not give it away. For those folks that are new in the audience who have not heard this before, when we come back in about 30 seconds, we'll play you this bizarre recording that Rosetta picked up on the night before it was going to land its little lander, and they put it out. They published it, almost like it's another part of the message. You're on The Other Side of Midnight. My guest this morning, my imaging panel, we're looking at the live narration of the landing of the Rosetta spacecraft on the surface of what looks to be an ancient human interstellar probe. Maybe, maybe not. We shall return.
Well, it's definitely permeating. Right now, there's at least 11,000 people watching the grand finale for this time. This is that it keeps coming up and up and more. So there's so many people interested in it. Did you want me to play the singing comet? See if you can hear it through my.
Yeah. Why don't we try the comet sounds that were recorded on the approach last year? These are actual sounds amplified and then accelerated in time. In other words, they've been sped up in frequency, but the rhythmic frequency has been maintained. So it's merely been accelerated, and you'll hear something quite extraordinary.
Oh, and Richard, recall that they didn't hear this until they got within 100 kilometers of the
That's
comet.
right. It almost like it was a proximity thing, and it turned on when Rosetta got close enough to trigger an alarm. You ready, Will?
Yep.
Now, this is actual sounds recorded by a device on the spacecraft called the Plasma Experiment. And what's so astonishing is listen to the regularity. And that is real. That is an actual electromagnetic recording of the sounds of the comet made by this instrument on Rosetta When it approached, as Keith said, within about 100 miles, it suddenly was not there, and then it was there, and we've not heard any signal since. We have no idea what happened to the signal, do we?
Never heard a word about it.
But there was zero follow-up.
Nope.
Pretty weird. Again, it's almost like they put everything out there so that we can assemble the picture without them telling us what the picture is.
It's the craziest thing. My animals go crazy when I play that. That's probably the third time I've played that here. Every cat in the house is going nuts.
Well, maybe they're understanding it. Maybe it says, "We are your masters. We have returned."
Yeah, exactly. Because what are them? Is there anybody that is wise enough to decode it? Tell us.
Well, we got all kinds of algorithms. Just stick the damn thing in a computer and see what, in addition to the rhythmic tones, the background is doing, because it changes background pitches and frequency and all that. Very strange.
Yeah.
All right, hold it there.
Hold
it there.
Hang on,
you can
feel
guys.
it all the way down your spine.
We're at 5 after the hour, 3-minute break. You're on the other side of midnight. Very interested panel here on what's going to happen next. Don't go away. We shall return.
They did a bad, bad thing.
And listen to that one on the other side of midnight. It's a Friday morning, coming up on the end of the week. Kind of chilly and clammy and dampy here in the land of enchantment. It's in the upper 60s. Sorry, Patrick, and you've got that black moon, so you're not going to see any moon tomorrow. But the day after you will, so hang in there. So, Will, we got an update from ESSA.
All right. Right now, the live feed seems to be having a black screen, not much going on their Twitter and their Facebook pages. They just released the 8.9 kilometer images, which I have went ahead and linked on the Other Side of Midnight Facebook page under today's show. So as they come in, I'll be posting them.
Okay. And again, if people want to join Facebook or Twitter in the conversation and see some astonishing images, we have more bandwidth over there, so we're going to do that. Just go to the upper left-hand corner of theothersideofmidnight.com. Click on those icons. I can say that right. It's still Mercury retrograde, so my speaking ability sometimes is impaired during Mercury retrograde. So anyway, those two icons, click on them and join Facebook. And so what's the status right now with the spacecraft?
As of right now, they have no more status. I'm surprised. They've got over 11,000 people watching now, and just a black screen. So people are still interested, aren't turning away from it. But it is moving. It's on the. It's gone from 11 kilometers out to 8.9. So it's making its descent.
Wow. Well, as it gets closer and closer, the images are going to show more and more and more stuff. So let's talk about stuff. Who wants to jump in and talk about stuff? Kynthea?
Yes, I'd love to. If you'd go to Radios with Pictures, my first image, please.
Okay. We're there.
Okay, so at the top you see a detail from one of Keith's magnificent gigapans, and I'm liking it to this YouTube. It's in 2001 off the coast of India. The History Channel is reporting that there was a sunken landmass called Kumari Kandam. It's off the Gulf of Kambat. And you see there the three images of this ancient city, what it looks like now. And, it's just almost unrecognizable. And when you look at the image above from the so-called comet, or you look at the second image of Keith or the second image of Andrew, you're going to see features that look very much like this. And this city is only 32,000 years old. So imagine what's going on at the comet and spacecraft, I should say, that here the rigid forms that would normally be there have all sort of shifted with time and the erosion. And so I just want to point out that, we're not looking for features that are going to be identifiable, obviously. And so when you compare this ancient city that is nowhere near as old as what we're looking at on 67P, it all makes sense that we are looking at ancient ruins. It's
Keith,
I don't know how else to say that.
Well, I think that's kind of an agreement with all the rest of us. What's interesting to me is we all kind of like not talked about this among ourselves a lot, and certainly Kynthea is new to this, but the fact that you can look at this and see the hallmarks of artificiality, that is so affirming. That says to me that an awful lot of independent people, once they know there's something to look at, they're going to look at these images and they're going to see exactly what we see, and they're going to ask the same questions that we're asking. Keith, let's talk about your dome, because this afternoon when you sent me that image of the preceding era spacecraft, a succession of cultures, obviously after the big one, the Type 2, millions of years ago, that have made this pilgrimage. You noted that they all landed in this little area right next to this feature on the surface of this so-called comet, actually an ancient spacecraft, that you believe is the remnants of an ancient dome.
Yeah, Imhotep Dome is actually one of the, because that's the area that it dominates. But yeah.
So where should we go?
If you go to my image, go down to my section on Radio with Pictures, okay, and go down to my image number 3. It says Dom Comp under it.
Number 3. Got it.
Okay.
And then you click on it again to make it bigger. Or smaller.
Well, and you see the stone. Yeah. Also, Control Scroll works really well to zoom in and out on these pictures.
Yeah.
But you see this. I mean, this thing is a great big hexagonal dome. I mean, we've been studying it for a long time, and obviously S is really interested in it because there's a bunch of images in the archive. They released a bunch of images just yesterday, and I've been looking through them going, wow, and I didn't have time to prepare many of them for the show. But what's in the ones that are already there is just stunning. If you look at the detail that's in this dome, you see this is wreckage. It's plain and simple. You see geometry 3. Geometry.
Yeah, so you're looking at mechanical stuff, mechanical junk.
Well, and if they are landing these spacecraft to visit, what better place to go? I mean, when you're flying around this thing, you cannot miss this dome. It's on the large lobe on the very end. You can't miss it as the thing's tumbling under you. And so what better place to look? And if you look on this image above the dome, you see the little look up in the left-hand corner. On the black and white big image of the dome, it's
okay.
It's actually it's like a little 3-strip of images where I have a synthesized dome laid over top of it.
Right. On the
go
right
to the very top. Go to the top image of that, and you'll see the dome there. And if you look up, on the top left-hand corner of that, you'll see the little areas. That's where that craft image came from. Is that little area that's up in the left-hand corner of that.
Well, this thing has a hexagonal base, which means it might have been tetrahedral.
Well, I think the hexagon was A.C. Clarke's actual monolith. That's what I think.
No. There's a private conversation. Hang on. There's a private conversation I had between him and Kubrick back in 1965, and I've got it as an actual. I forget the artist's name. You might know it, Andrew. He did. Was it Bill Macaulay? Anyway, he did a lot of art sketches for 2001. The original monolith was supposed to be a gigantic tetrahedron, just like that little spaceship lying on the surface of 67P in your new craft images you sent me this afternoon.
Yeah, it's amazing. When that thing turns it up and you can see the stuff that's really down there, it's something else. But yeah, this dome has been intriguing me, since the beginning. I saw it in the images and I couldn't ignore it. I mean, there's a great big hexagon, and that's akin to to South Massive on the moon, which is a great big hexagon. So we see a lot of these things that are hexagonal. Matter of fact, this whole comet is eaten up with hexagons. I would like to draw attention to. I saw something that Bob put up. I'd like to go to one of his images and show something real quick.
Okay.
Because
and Bob has been incredibly silent over there in the Atlantic. You have to speak up, Robert.
Yeah, crashed the server again. I don't have pictures, but Bob, go over that image that you have that has the hexagons on it. That is amazing.
Okay.
Right, thanks, Keith. The website is crashed or is slow to load for me at the moment.
Yeah.
If
that's good.
It's come up now. If people go to my items, Robert's items, and item 4.
Item 4. Okay.
I've still only got a grey screen at the moment, but I can remember it. Basically, as Keith says, there's a lot of hexagonal depressions.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Hexagonal depressions on Comet 67P. And what I've done is I've taken the diagram or the illustration that Keith has done of a hexagonal dome for his dome, and imagined it being domes like that being over those hexagonal depressions on 67P. And at the very top, I still haven't got it here on my computer at the moment, but at the very top I've shown another image that Keith discovered of an asteroid with a dome city on it. So the idea is just to bring together these elements of Keith's work on his dome, those hexagonal, that particular dense clutch of hexagonal depressions, bit of Andrew's artwork into one poster to give a conceptual idea of 67P as perhaps a natural object, but heavily altered surface.
I don't think this is natural. I think it was all made. Yeah, they may have wrapped an artificial thing around a core of ice, for water and hydrogen and other organics or something like that. But I think most of this thing is artificial because we see artificial geometry everywhere we look.
Oh yes, the surface is probably being, you think of artificiality completely covering the surface. But what we'd be seeing now are basically the foundations and footings of what was there before.
As this thing falls,
so very heavily ruined.
As this thing falls like a feather, think of it as floating down like a feather. That's how fast it's falling. Falling isn't really the right term. They've got a camera. They got 2 cameras that have incredible optics, and they're going to take picture after picture after picture and send them back in real time because they get all the antennas all aligned and they're falling straight down. At some point, these black screens, is it possible they're seeing things that they're freaking out about and they don't want to show us in real time?
Nice if you were, wouldn't it?
I mean, are they really that dumb, a lot of them, that they don't get what's been going on, what they've been looking at for 2 years?
But if they wanted to hide it, then why would they have made the film Ambition? It's like they're saying, look at it.
Well, but wait. When we say they, remember, not everybody in an organization knows as much as everybody else. Mm-hmm. So you can work like a worker bee and have no clue as to what's going on. The guys that did the film, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but they used incredibly accurate and precise symbology and art and camera moves and all that to convey an archive message.
Oh, absolutely. Everything from the camera moves. I mean, you could argue that first opening shot with the dead tree is just, like you said, Richard, an artistic framing of a foreground object to give us more depth perception, etc. But no. There's a lot of layering going on there.
So this is the symbolic story, what they think they found, which is an archive to their own past. The dead tree. It's always cold under another star in the morning. I mean, good grief, who wrote that line?
And the lyrics for the music that's going on at the time is really. It says there's a place behind a tiny door where there are vines and even roses, and more, and then it goes on. But
I can lift the thorns so you can feel again, and press them in your hand or in your skin.
Yeah.
We start to bleed again. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I would like to go back to Keith's picture number 3 with the dome. I was just sitting and enhancing it a little bit, and I am truly amazed because
during the show, Thomas is enhancing one of Keith's pictures because that's how obsessed all these guys are. When they see something amazing, they got to go for it. Oh, say which image now are we looking at?
And I'm actually doing it on my tablet here because I am trying to record the live stream from ESA here at the same time.
Okay.
So if you go to Keith's picture number 3,
the dome comp.
The dome comp, yeah, and take the picture in the bottom. There are a top picture and the bottom picture, and from the left to the right, go 1/3 of the picture in. About halfway down, there is a big rock that has a light white top. If you can see that one, and just to the left of that big rock, there is another rock about 1/3 of the size. And if you zoom in, and I'm doing this on my little tablet here, I will guarantee you what you are looking at here is something that looks like writings on it, and it's crystal clear.
Yes, it has letters on it. It has letterings. Yes, it does.
Yes, it has, and I am amazed. And I'm sitting. I can see a D, I can see an F, I can see a Y, and I can see something that looks like an S and an N, and that is a little bit blurry, but I would say clear enough to see.
Now, obviously, right there, you're going to be raising all kinds of questions for people who say, "Wait a minute, English letters on a comet?"
Well, they're not really. They're different. If you look closely, they're not English. They're different.
Okay.
But they are framed like letters, were sort of like a tail number would be on an airplane.
I can guarantee you when I come back from work after this show here, I will enlarge this, enhance this picture. And
well, it's not only that, but the big rock that you started off from, that's just to the right of that.
Yes.
Look at that. Well, why does it have a turkey tail and a spiral on the front of it, and what is that on the top of it? The whole image. You can spend days in this one image, and I have a gigapan of this that's called Up Close and Personal. It's in my 67p gallery at Gigapan. Look through it. It's awesome. It puts this image to shame. You can really see the letters.
This image is loaded with anomalies. For all of you out there, we will put Keith Gigapan, at least on the UFAH page on Facebook, and you can go download it. And I will guarantee you can spend hours just looking at it and be fascinated of what you can find of images of anomalies on this.
Okay, Keith, you have an image number 7 called The Stairs, and that's kind of our flag image tonight. It's on the homepage of The Other Side of Midnight. You want to kind of talk about that? Because then I'll talk about a detail on this image, which I think is compelling in terms of an ancient visit.
Well, I mean, I named this The Stairs because I like to give creative little names to the things I find that are not too controversial. But if you look at it, that's what it's reminiscent of. It's broken layer upon layer upon layer of structure, and it displays geometry 3. That we love to see and everything, and it's just an amazing image. It's another one of those that you can get lost in and stay in for hours, and it does have particular details along the top, and I don't want to steal your thunder, so you go right ahead, Rich.
It's okay. So if you click on it, it gets bigger. Scroll to the very top, and you'll see that I rotated it so that vertical is vertical. There's a interesting kind of bright teardrop-shaped object, medium size, sitting right next to what looks to be a cliff. And then if you go back to Radio with Pictures and you get out of this image and you scroll up to My Images, and it's a little slow because we got a lot of people looking right now. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. Okay. Nope, it didn't let me do that. There's too many people looking. Okay, we're going to have to increase our bandwidth because you can't do Radio with Pictures unless you have pictures. Very difficult. Okay, so let me try to go in through another doorway here. All right. Anyway, if you go up to one of my pictures, you'll see that there's a close-up of this object. And in fact, it looks like one of the pods out of the hangar bay in the Discovery spacecraft that was in 2001. I mean, it just looks astonishing. It looks like a spacecraft that literally has been, and I have to go back in, that has been parked there waiting for what? And I'm trying to log back onto the page because we have an awful lot of people on the page. It's really taking a lot of time.
Could we discuss Keith's item number 1 at some time, Richard?
Yes, let's do that because I can't get in. So someone who's already in, take over.
That's the spike, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, describe this.
Well, the spike is it's basically what I call it. It's a black thing that's sticking up about 25 yards out of the surface, casting a shadow. And it's on 2 images that I've seen in Rosetta so far, and probably countless more if I dig through the archives, which is going to happen because they've been flooding the images in there really quick and not releasing them. But now they're going to release all of them, and they'll all be in there. We'll be able to pour through them and see if this thing. When I first saw it, I thought it might be a defect in the camera lens. Mm-hmm. And then, especially when I saw it on 2. But as I'm looking through, a defect on the camera lens will be on all images from that particular camera. Of course. And it's only on the ones that are taking a picture of the item. So it's definitely there on the surface. It's casting a shadow that corresponds directly with the angle of the sunlight falling on it in every picture. There are 3 now. I've got 2 highlighted on this particular image, but I was looking because they're releasing images as they're doing this crash in or sacrifice, and so I found a brand new one just as we're starting the show.
Okay, hang on. We're at the bottom of the hour. My guest this morning, my imaging panel on theothersideofmidnight.com. Go there, click on Facebook and Twitter, join the conversation, send me a question. I'll get back to some of those when we come back. We shall return. Don't go away. Okay, we are back on the other side of midnight. 1.5 hour to go. If you want to join the conversation live on the air with Essa giving us updates in the background, we're going to go back to Essa shortly and find out what's going on. You can call us on Skype, 505-796-8802, 505-796-8802, or Enterprise Mission or the other side of midnight. Will, what's going on over at Essa?
All right. As of right now, they keep they're changing images. They're basically haven't put any new ones out. We're at 8.9 still on theirs. They put a cute little comet landing cartoon out, but other than that, we're just waiting. It looks like more and more people are coming in. Wait for some more news.
Okay. So who else wants to jump in?
Well, go ahead, Derek.
I would like to talk about one of the pictures, if it's okay with you here, because I was looking at one of my own pictures, picture number 2.
Okay.
And now I have to...
So hang on, we have to go back to Radio with Pictures. We scroll down to Thomas's items, which is under Keith. Keep going. Under Andrews. Under Roberts.
Almost at the bottom.
There we are. We are. Almost at the bottom. Okay, Thomas's items.
And take picture number 2.
Number 2.
I was looking at that and was thinking, oh boy, what are we looking at? Because there is this round object sitting in something that looks like, and this is just a term, a giant mechanical spider or something. I don't know how to say it in English.
No, you know what it looks like? No,
Thomas.
That's
the dome.
It looks like, well, from this angle, it looks to me like the bow of the Titanic with the cranes still aloft. In other words, it looks like a mechanical thing that's in incredible ruin. But the lines show... Go ahead.
Yeah, that is the dome. I guarantee you. I've been studying this thing from all angles, all the way around this That is the dome. You're looking at the little sidewall that you can see in my large image, and what you're seeing protruding of the top, seeing protruding from the top is actually sticking up there. When we're looking from an upper view, looking down on it, you don't see that, but the perspective shots from the side show that stuff. And also, there are mounds that are beyond it too, and we're seeing some of that too. But the stuff down on the ends, that's actually standing up there.
I didn't realize we were looking at the same, because I think yours was from a slightly different angle.
Yes.
Yeah. That is so great that two people or more are looking at the same object and pointing it out with different versions of what we are looking at here.
Something's drawing attention to it, see? It's just like that beacon that it let out at 100 kilometers. It's drawing your attention to it.
It does not look natural at all.
By the way, Keith had some interesting reactions to that music. Can you put up the music for the comet again? And I want you to describe in real time as that's playing your reaction to that. Because I think that might be intended. I think maybe, we're all thinking right brain communication, hieroglyphics, information. What if this communication was at a much deeper torsion level to resonate with consciousness itself?
That is one of the most reverberating sounds. And as it goes up and down in frequency, if you're sitting and focusing on it, you can feel it move up and down your nervous system, or go up and down your spine. And I'm a meditator, so I know what it feels like when my chakras are being lit up. And this does it. Chilling. Yeah, that high pitch focuses right almost in your medulla.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So there's two or more sets of modulation going on. There's the background rhythm, and then there's the modulation of the rhythm and the change of the frequency of the modulation of the rhythm.
And then it ends it off by running all the way up and down the whole range of them. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
And I could feel that go from the top of my, from my crown.
Okay, so as this football field craft gently floats like a feather closer and closer, sinking vertically toward this 2.5 mile wide multi-pronged object, what is it picking up now? As it gets below a certain altitude, will another set of signals go off? Will it be able to record them and send them back to Earth in time before it turns off?
Well, hey,
and what's the impact of everyone listening to this at the same time, all around the planet? Are we all being tuned to a frequency as we're all listening to this simultaneously?
Oh, that's right out of Independence Day. It's a signal using our satellites. So you got to pay attention, Mr. President.
Well, you know what? They're flying Rosetta really softly into this thing.
Oh yeah. Well, they want it to survive. It has to be an icon. It has to sit there. It has to be a structure.
Well, when have they ever done that? When
the soft landing on Eros for the spacecraft that was named. Oh, they renamed it after. What's his name? Oh, I can't remember the darn spacecraft name. But they did soft land the bus, what they call the bus, the spacecraft that carries things to other places. They landed the bus. It was solar powered. The panels were much smaller than Rosetta, but they were able to successfully soft land it. And then the Omni antennas kept transmitting to Earth. So they got gamma ray readings. They got temperature readings. They got a bunch of readings when they weren't supposed to. But with Rosetta, they're not going to try that at all. They're going to have it turn itself off so it becomes a silent monument to us.
Rosetta just put out a new tweet. It says that the operations manager passive visitation commands have been confirmed and executed. SW patch is live. No turn it back. number comet landing. So we are en route.
And the landing/impact is in what, 3.5 hours, something like that?
They are still saying it's going to be, yes, at 28 after UTC. So, but that's about probably 2.5 hours now, or 2 hours.
Yeah, it's about 4:20 our time, so it's 2:40 now. So, okay, images. Back to images. We had some astonishing stuff there, guys, and I think Will has got an image. One image tonight.
I brought one image.
Okay.
First time. You know, I had to get sold on 67p. This was one of the ones that I haven't made videos on. I just was kind of
You never read my Pluto book. You should have read the Pluto book. Okay, scroll down to Will's items.
All right.
Oh my God, one little lone item there between Robert and Andrew. Okay.
I know that's a first. Now, this was found by this was on my website. It was found by a buddy, Joe White. He called it the Tower, and just kind of out there in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my God!
This was from September 24th, I think, is when it was. 09. Okay, it was 2014. In September, it came down, and all I did was turn it 25 degrees counterclockwise, just so you could see it standing up how it would be. But just kind of lone sitting there. I don't know actual scale on it, but it sure is interesting.
Well, if Keith's rod or spire or whatever you're calling it, a shard, is 25 meters, that's 3 times, that's what, 150 feet, something like that? This thing has got to be at least as tall, if not bigger. You know what it looks like, Will? It looks like one of those round towers in Scotland or Ireland that were built by monks in the 9th century. And Callahan has investigated. They have incredible hyperdimensional properties because they're basically an obelisk. They resonate to the torsion field. If that thing isn't eroded, if that thing is like something original, it could be one of those.
And the top looks like a different color as well. Kind of turned a little bit darker.
Well, yeah, it's dark. I mean, this is black and white. So, anybody else?
Yeah, this is definitely a great picture, because if you look just in front of the tower, now I have enlarged it on my tablet again, looking just in front of that tower, there is something almost square construction, not complete square, but almost, and it looks like it has window frames in it.
Oh, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It looks like some kind of rotunda. You can almost see these
building that has been standing out there for a few thousand years.
This is going to be cool, guys. What if this is like the tower in Seattle, and this used to be the rotating restaurant up on the top?
Oh yeah.
And it's now lying on the ground next to it because the gimbals broke.
Oh, that's cool.
Rosetta Restaurant, Eden in the sky.
Even in the sky. Okay, again, Facebook, if you want to get a question in. Greg Ahrens has an interesting question. He says, for new listeners, please go over the problems of outgassing into the vacuum of space, but with straight-line jets of gas and dust versus a cloud of dust. In other words, I think he's addressing the idea of these pits. And remember, our model is these are not excavations due to sunlight melting surface ice. These are constructions, like huge viaducts. They're like the plumbing system. By the way, anybody want to guess? We got a few minutes till the end of the show. Anybody want to guess what those bumps on that tower or that tunnel we're going to be descending and taking incredible high resolution images of in the next 2 hours actually might be?
Well, you know what, Richard? Speaking of those bumps, I have something really, really similar. If you go up to my images, and it's image number 5.
Okay.
It says 9115 on it.
Okay, got to go back. By the way, people are trying to call in, and I'm not getting any connections. It doesn't add to group call, so you have to update your Skypes, folks. You know, we all updated our Skype before we did the show tonight, because if you don't update, you can't be in residence and you can't join the call. So we go to your items. Okay.
It's number 5.
Number 5.
It says 9115.
Items. Okay, scrolling down. There we are, number 5.
All right, click on that.
Got it.
Okay, now look along the bottom.
Oh, yes, I saw this the other day.
Yes, but now that's the 3Gs. Exactly. You see, not only is it the goosebump-looking things that are all up the side of that, you see the ruined deck construction type, and then inside all these bumps, there's a certain geometry that goes to that. There's two big triangles laying there, and they're all cut up into little small geometric sections that are these little bumps. Wow. And behind it is incredible. The decking there, the lighting on this is shining right through the layers that are behind it, and to me, that's just amazing.
How can these folks not know what they've gone to? So if they know, and it's this awesome, incredible legacy, how can they dissemble to the world and not jump up and down and say, for God's sake, look at what we've found?
They're standing behind that clear door that says access forbidden.
Yeah.
That's why.
So anybody
As I'm looking at their Twitter feeds,
yes.
As I look at the Twitter, I'm looking at the trends. Not even trending. It's breakfast celebrities are trending, and more. It's almost like people just care about celebrities and Rogue Fridays and Be Nice. Nothing. None of the trends are actually for the space stuff. That's rather sad to me that not more people are interested.
Well, it's because they don't know why they should be interested. Who's interested in a dirty, cold piece of rock which basically smells like a cesspool?
Exactly.
Which is how ESA has sold this object for the last year.
The most curious thing about the outgassings of this is oxygen.
Of course, you can't have free oxygen.
No. Where did that come from?
It's coming from a damn tank. Of course. Free oxygen after several billion years on a piece of a speck of dust. No way. With no energy. Anyway, if you want to join the conversation, we have a few minutes left to the end of the hour. Come on, a nice pithy question. 505-796-8802. Enterprise mission or the other side of midnight. Anyway,
is there anything crisp in your pictures you want to go over? I don't think we.
Yeah, let me now that we've got the website back, let me go back to my pictures. Let me go up to Richard's images. Scroll up. I believe it's number 9 in my images, which thank goodness are at the top. I have to scroll down past Keith. He's got a library there. Okay, number 9. Number 9? Number 9? Okay, this is what I think this thing is. Now, if in the bottom left-hand corner I've done an inset, look at that. Does that look like a rock, or does that look like a pod, a spacecraft, with windows and, surface hatches? And it also looks, if you look really close, it looks beaten up. Now, what does that tell us?
That's a picture from Keith stairwell.
Yeah, this is the one we showed earlier. It was sitting on top of the...
Mm-hmm.
On the ridge there, and it has like these 3 holes right in the middle of it, right in the front of it, rather, facing to the left.
Yeah. It looks
they're like perfect holes.
It looks like it's all symmetrical. It looks like a pod. It's got geometry. It's got straight edges. It's got legs. You see the shadow on the back, the kind of edge, that sharp edge coming up at an angle?
Yeah.
The whole damn thing looks like a space. Now, there's something lying in front of it, like 2 diameters away, which also is symmetrical. You see it's got 2 fins on each side sticking out, and it looks kind of square, like blocky. It's got right angles. So in other words, is this another place where there's something sacred, a library, an entrance, an archive, and they've got a map, and if you go and land there, and that's a manned spacecraft, by the way, that's not a probe, you then get out in your spacesuit and you enter and you find, as the movie says, the archive.
Yep. Well, I can tell you right now, just from a lot of these pictures, and a lot of these guys will agree, is that I don't believe we're the first one to get on this comet, this so-called comet. We were just commenting about Keith's photo. I think it was, what was it, 3 or 4, Keith, at the very base, and it looked like a small white cylindrical object laying there. It looked like some kind of small craft. And if you look around many of these photos, just look at it carefully, and you're going to see these things. They're clearly not natural.
No. Well, for one thing, they're much too bright. Remember, the average background reflectivity of this thing is maybe 5%? These things are like 20, 30, 40%, which means they have darkened over time.
Yeah. I think anybody who's a skeptic or just doesn't believe in this type of thing, I suggest that what they do is, and I do this in a lot of my videos, I tell them to just click on a photo, get out a magnifying glass, and look these things over. You're going to find some incredible things laying on this rock, this two-piece lobe rock, as they call it, which I find amusing that they say this slowly came together and collided, and what do they say? It fused itself together.
One of my images is focusing on the specular highlights.
Oh, number 2, yes.
Different reasons.
I noticed, okay, define specular for folks that have forgotten what specular means.
Well, like a glare, when you're looking and glass is glaring and it's reflecting the sunlight, it's brighter than the natural rock around it would do. And it's like some of them are coming out of dark places, like, well, how could it be? It's right next to the shadow. It just doesn't.
Oh, look at that.
It doesn't make sense, the edges of it. I mean, they're just baffling. There's no way a rock is going to do that.
So when you say specular reflection, it means like a mirror.
Like a mirror, that's right. Like light bouncing off glass.
For some reason, everyone trying to call tonight, I cannot connect any group calls. Skype is being very obstreperous. We all updated, and maybe that did something. So we'll try again. I'm sorry. 425, I can't connect you, because if I do, I lose everybody else. So I can't do that. Not a good idea. And we can't use the KCA line because it's not connected to Skype, so no one will be able to hear it, so we can't do that either. That will be fixed by next week, okay?
Richard?
Yes, Mr. Currie.
The tiny balls in the shaft. I've been dying to know what you think that is.
Okay, everybody want to take a guess at what the multiple geometrically arrayed objects, so they're not all spheres. There's some more complex geometry there. It's going to be mind-blowing on these images if they are going to show us. But anybody want to take a crack at what all these nice rhythmic, almost geometric arrangement of stuff in the inside walls of these vertical tunnels might be?
What picture number are we looking at? Sorry.
Well, let's look at number 10. My number 10, up under Richard's items. Okay. This is the close-up now of this tunnel they're landing next to, which has this very interesting Egyptian derivation, meaning, Keith?
Excuse me, mute button again. What was it again? It's more like keepers of secret knowledge.
Yeah, right, something like that.
Or
yes.
the true knowledge, yeah.
Okay, now someone just sent me a message in Skype. Let me see if I can see who it was. It is M. Oh, my God. She's going to get the gold star. She says it's the ship's arteries. And she's absolutely right. I think of the amount of air that you need to circulate and clean and process for however many people can live inside a spacecraft, which is 2.5 miles in diameter. Think of the volume. We're talking cubic miles, right? How do you clean and purify and recycle the air and all the other fluids so people stay alive? You need a big set of lungs. You need an arterial system to pump fluids and gases, and you need a way to recycle and clean them. I think those little spheres are recycling like vesicles in your lungs that was basically to recycle the air, and that raises the extraordinary question, are we looking at a partly organic spacecraft, a living creature in symbiosis with its occupants, like a couple of TV shows of 20 years ago?
Oh, wow, Richard, so you're saying like bronchioles.
You really just blew everything out the water.
It's all right in front of us. There's too much organic-looking stuff about this.
Is that a possible craft sitting there in the hole there on the upper ridge of it? You see it's cylindrical? Is that a possible craft sitting there?
Possibly.
That made it into the hole? That made it into the hole?
Yeah.
I was thinking it was like balconies, not balconies, but, like circular where you could look out. The light would come in, but you'd be there and you could look out. Like there's
no, because there's more than one of these, and you've got they're the local vertical, and they're massive, which means they're meant to distribute something. And when you see a tunnel, and you see now there's all these gases jetting out of it, it's broken plumbing. The oxygen, the free oxygen is coming out. I think this was a system as part of, as M said brilliantly, an arterial system to keep the ship and the people in it alive.
Indeed, yes.
And the question is, do they know what they're falling down on right now as we speak, 500 million miles away in the outer solar system?
Of course they do.
So well planned,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
It's so well planned.
Okay.
You know they did.
So then the question is, when are they going to tell us? When are they going to have the big reveal? When are they going to, or are they waiting for us to create a viral situation where people say, holy blankety blank, look what they haven't told us about?
Well, or maybe the last pictures are going to make it so obvious that, everybody will say, oh my gosh, Maybe they're hoping that those final shots that they're going to get will...
See, the problem I found over doing this for like 30 years, and everybody's going to agree with me, I find very, very little new stuff that looks like stuff people can recognize. Some of the new spacecraft, like my favorite spacecraft there tonight, I think that an average person would go and say, yeah, that might be what you think it is. But for most people, looking at this stuff and trying to figure out what they're seeing is like trying to teach them Greek in their sleep. It ain't going to work. They have no background reference.
Then they see Lilliputians and so forth down there.
Yeah. And again, it's back to what do you recognize? And again, I'm going out on a limb here, but I think we're looking at some kind of arterial system. I think M really, really hit it right on the head. God, maybe she is psychic.
You doubt it?
Okay, guys, we're coming up. We've got 2 minutes left. Any pithy final thoughts? Because we're going to do this all again next Saturday. John Brandenburg, the guy who thinks there may have been a nuclear war on Mars and has isotopic data to support it, we're going to bring him on, and he's going to do the first hour and lay out his model. Then we're going to bring you guys back, and we're going to show him stuff on Mars that's not made by us, that was made by somebody there, and we're going to see what John can recognize.
Awesome.
Okay, 30 seconds left. Anybody? Finish up the show.
Goodbye, Rosetta.
Yeah, goodbye, Rosetta.
Thank you for now.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe we see something new later.
Actually, in about 120 tetrahedral minutes, it will gently land and become an icon in human history. And there's our music. Well, everyone, my guests this morning, and there are too many to name, so go to the website and take a look, because they will be back. And every one of you all around the world listening and following this interesting drama, stay tuned to what happens in the next several days. Watch the images. Go to our website, go to the ESA website, and pay attention. This is only the beginning. The best is yet to come.